ladies and gentle loves, Losey is back because I got nothing left to do. Plus, I don't have school for now, but what the hell. As you can see, I watched every single one. However, I'm excluding the theatrical releases and TV films, especially a live-action film. And as you can also see, I'm dressed up for the occasion. Scooby-Doo has been part of my life growing up, and some of the films were aired on TV, specifically Boomerang and Cartoon Network. Plus, I used to own 2 Scooby-Doo films, which I'm gonna bring up later on. This is a ranking from worst to best animated direct-to-video Scooby-Doo films. Mind you, this is solely my opinion, so if you disagree with some of my placements, let me know in the comments. So enough chit-chatting, this is going to be a long video, so grab a snack and drink, and let's dive into the mystery machine.
I was never really satisfied with how that whole thing turned out.
I want to start off with the plot before I start tearing it to shreds. It's obviously a sequel to an already great film. So this one is about the mystery gang wanting to go on vacation, only to arrive in Moonstar Island Resort, the same spot where Simonalina used to live. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scoob lays a promise to his friends to never solve mysteries. So they tried until they eventually get their solving privileges back. Apparently, there are still cat people in the island, so now the gang had to figure out what went wrong during the last time they came there. I gotta say it needs to be said. This movie is a conniving little abortion. Something that should never exist. I don't care about the voice acting, I don't care about the animation, and I can hardly care about the character who wants to get a movie done. What appalled me is the fact they went with the narrative that the events that happened before was all fake. Are you fucking kidding me? Shag and Scoob know what they're getting into. Why didn't they just stay home? I can't stand Thelma in this movie. Not at all. How can she just sit there and think what happened was all fake? I wanted to slap her in the face so fucking badly. Movie, how can you say Daphne worked at a TV station for a school project? She's already an adult and had her own TV show with Fred as the camera guy. Velma worked in a bookstore, and Shaggy and Scoob worked as airport security guards looking around for contraband. But apparently in this movie, they're teenagers. What a huge continuity error. This movie literally threw away everything that made the original film amazing. This should have never been made. Fuck this movie. Let's just move on.
Here's why I draw the line, right? They're going in a straight line. They're going in a straight line, right? They're facing them in a straight line. They proceed to go to the left. They stop, they go to the left. How do these people not go over there?
I watched this movie with a friend of mine named Tank a few years ago, as you can tell. For the sake of this video, I rewatched it for the second time without him. This is the second and last film the original cast members worked together, excluding Frank Welker, who still voiced Fred to this day, and Casey Kasem, who still voices Shaggy until the Samurai Sword. This one is about the gang going to Veracruz, Mexico to see Fred's pen pal friend Alejo, who owns a huge hotel. While there, they're told about the monster named Chupacabra. My friend and I were bashing this film to the point we planned to make a movie review, but we didn't have so much time on our hands. This movie is very messy. The plot is completely all over the place. The writing is very lazy. Obviously, there's lack of research in this film, especially when they compared the Day of the Dead with Halloween. Plus, the Chupacabra legend originated in Puerto Rico, not Mexico. The geographical locations are not authentic. Why does it have to take place on the Day of the Dead? The holiday doesn't hold any significance with the plot. My friend Take describes this film very well.
It was messy, it was sloppy, it was completely, I wouldn't say rushed, but it was completely overlooked.
Monster of Mexico, it's a definite skip. Next movie. Oh my fucking god. I have high hopes for this film to be good. No, not good, but downright awesome. This one continues the story of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. I think the show was okay. Flim Flam was pretty annoying, especially during the witch episode. I only watched the show to get an understanding before going into it. But anyway, this one is about the gang being told by a cop to not do mysteries anymore after accusing an innocent man. So Fred sold the mystery machine, and one of the members found a crystal ball, which was caused to contact Vincent Van Gogh. So Daff, Shaggy, and Scoob decided to get back on the mission and finish it once and for all. I wanted this movie to be good, but the ending is when they fucked everything up. I'm doing you a favor here. The 13th ghost you see on the cover is a fucking guy in a mask. In actuality, the 13th ghost is Vincent's ancestor. I initially thought the ghosts were supposed to be evil, hence why they had to be concealed in the chests of demons. But I guess the show is already fucking ruined from the very start. They screwed over Fred's character. He seems so possessive about his fan. That's all he cared about. But he also motivates his friends by cheerleading, which made me cringe. Daphne, though, she made decent decisions during her mission, but I noticed the writers were attempting to perceive her as a strong, independent woman, but it just feels like they're trying too hard. It's nice to see her being a leader, though. Velma, on the other hand, No, I can't with her. What I noticed in modern day Scooby-Doo is that Velma seems more overly skeptical, obnoxious, annoying, and unlikable. Don't waste your time on this one. It's a missed opportunity thanks to lazy writing. So this one is about the mystery gang going to a Hollywood studio after Scooby and Shaggy won an eating contest. Shocker. While on the tour, they were getting harassed by the Headless Horseman, the Mummy, and a zombie. The gang noticed the studio is going to close down, so they devise a plan to make a movie while also investigating. Tip note here, this is an introduction to Kate M's voicing Velma, replacing Mindy Kaling. I'm gonna be honest, the animation is great, the voice acting is also great, but the story was bland and the villain reveal was so predictable. And I gotta say, it was cringy and it's something I don't recommend at all. Yup, there's another Lego Scooby movie, but this time it's about the gang going to the beach to have a relaxing weekend while simultaneously berating Fred and Velma about not being fun. Which I can relate to. Being told you're not fun sucks, but I have my reasons. The beach was holding an annual event where they would crown anyone who had the most fun on the beach. But when the gang got there, many people ditched the beach because it's apparently haunted by 2 ghost pirates. So Fred and Velma went on to focus on proving Daphne, Shaggy, and Scoob wrong, whereas the 3 are trying to solve the mystery. I think this one is also cringe. I mean, it started off with a forgettable musical. The Jinky dance is trash, including the song. But I'll give it props for being slightly fun. Again, the villain reveal is just so predictable, and I guessed it right at the top of my head. It almost pissed me off, so skip this movie too.
We're doomed, Scoob! We're doomed! Doomed!
But who could have seen that coming?
I dare it!
We're heroes.
This one follows Fred, Daphne, Scooby, and Shaggy visiting Egypt to surprise Velma, who was restoring the Sphinx for 6 months. They see her again, but a bad, sad story comes in caused by a stuck-up bitch, which results in the gang to stay inside the Sphinx, where apparently the lost tomb of Cleopatra is located, even though the actual tomb remained undiscovered. Crazy things happen, such as Velma and her friend being turned into stone, unleashing the undead army, and a group of people worshipping Scooby for some reason. When I was a kid, I personally didn't like this movie because I hardly see Velma in it, especially when the ending happened. It led me to hate it altogether. And looking back on it, and rewatching it with Tank, who's got a sexy microphone by the name of Blue Yeti, I still don't like it at all, and I can kind of see why now. One good thing I could say about it is that the curse has a very interesting backstory. The idea of having the movie taking place in Egypt fills a lot of possibilities. The atmosphere inside the Sphinx looks cool. It sets the mystery mood pretty well. Now, when it comes to everything else, the villain is so fucking unlikable. I get it, we're supposed to hate the villain, but she is so obnoxious. Hell, even Tank hate her guts.
And I don't know what the gimmick was. I don't know if they purposely wanted like that character to be so unlikable. You know, it's unnecessarily obnoxious. Just shut up.
When it comes to the plot twist, I understand it worked out. It's a cool plan, but I'm still unsure about it. Especially the way it was executed. It feels underwhelming, and Velma kinda pissed me off. The scene where Scooby was being worshipped as a god was idiotic and annoying. I'm sorry, but no matter how many times I've watched this film, I can't bring myself to like it. So this one is about the mystery gang traveling to England for vacation and to look through Shaggy's ancestry, something that has been done before, might I add. It turns out that Shaggy is a descendant of King Arthur, although historians still have proof that King Arthur actually existed. Plus, there was going to be an Arthur, but he's dead. There is a ghost named Morgan Le Fay who wants to rule England and took the game back in time to the Arthurian times. Specifically, the old Camelot. So now the gang has to protect the king from Morgan and figure out how to go back to the present. I wanted to like this one, but due to the sad reality of lazy writing, it's where it was blown out of the water. It's disappointing that they went with the same played out conclusion. It annoyed me, to be honest. The exploration of British culture was pretty basic. I mean, there is the Tower Bridge, the London Eye, Big Ben, Queen Elizabeth II with her pet corgis, and the food. Yay. When the whole villain review came in, it made me facepalm. Do I have to mention that Velma sucks in this one? They had an opportunity for this film to be nice for once, but they went with this crap again. So disappointing, the fans expected more than that.
Who's awesome? I'm awesome. Who's awesome? I'm awesome. Who's awesome? Shut up, bitch!
Okay, so this one is incredibly weird because it's a collaboration with the WWE. I haven't watched wrestling in a long time, and I remember loving it as a kid. The moments that won't leave my head was when Vince McMahon was whooping the crap out of Hornswoggle. The ladder match between Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio fighting for custody, a match between Rey Mysterio and The Undertaker, and of course, John Cena. He was the talk at my elementary school during the PG era. From what I've heard years later, was garbage. So this one is about Shaggy and Scooby inviting their friends to go to WWE City because of the invite for the video game they were playing. Eventually, they encountered a ghost bear whose motive is to take down Wrestlemania. Of course, we have the guest stars who also participated in the film. AJ Lee, Santino Marella, Triple H, The Miz, Kane, Brodus Clay, Vince McMahon, and of course, John Cena. And Dab seems to be sipping over him. This is one of the most questionable films I have ever watched. How can John Cena push a boulder away when it would crush the ball to death? How did WWE establish a city? Why the fuck am I watching two police officers arresting a dog? An animal, for goodness sake. Did I just saw Sin Cara bitch slap a ghost bear? Why did Sin Cara's grandfather wrestle a real bear? Why the hell did the bone bender bought real bones off the internet for his costume? What is this movie? This film is hilariously embarrassing and I would never touch it ever again. So this one is about the mystery gang visiting Fred's uncle, celebrity chef Bobby Flay, who works at an inn, but electricity was causing mayhem, and who was it? Well, it's the Red Ghost. So the gang sticks around to not only learn culinary skills, but to also investigate the backstory of the place. Who was Edward Flay? Why was he beloved? And of course, who is the ghost? So I think this one is so boring. The concept is not interesting. It's not that great. However, they get celebrity chefs voicing themselves, which is kind of nice. It almost made me fall asleep in the first half. Mainly it's because it was slow paced. But it kind of picks up in the second half. Not really, actually. The villain reveal almost pissed me off because I initially thought it was going to be blatantly obvious but then they revealed who was the actual culprit, which I honestly didn't expect. But what annoyed me when watching the Scooby movies, the writer seems to like the villain motivation route of scaring people into buying specific properties. It's been done to death. Please stop using it. But anyway, it's mediocre, plain, and simple. P.S. Julia Child is the very first celebrity chef.
Face. You'll never get a bow unless you add a little glow.
Thank you.
This movie is about the gang going on a cruise ship to celebrate Fred's birthday nearby the Bermuda Triangle. They saw a man overboard who's an astrocartographer, and he explained that he and his crew members were attacked by ghost pirates. I thought this one is going to be great, but it sadly bored me. But luckily, the concept is good. I can't say the same for the writing, though. It was very lazy, which is sadly a common thing in the franchise. Another positive thing is that it taught me a little bit about the strange disappearances that occurred with the Bermuda Triangle. But going back to the plot, the pirates' motive was shown in the final act, which was incredibly dumb. It makes it seem the motive was jotted down at the last minute. The villain reveal was very crappy and unpredictable. There was this weird dude who hypnotized a lot of people on board by force, which doesn't work that way. Usually hypnosis is done consensually. It didn't work on Scooby and Shaggy, but why did it work for everyone else? Aside of that, it's sadly disappointing and boring. So this one is their very first musical film. It follows the mystery gang visiting a vampire-themed town founded by a vampire and a descendant lives there. The descendant is a novelist who hardly gets any recognition, but Velma knows about him. They went to a show where the performers are taking the vampire act so seriously, they unleashed a vampire ghost, so the gang has to devise a plan to stop that said vampire ghost. I think this movie isn't bad, but I just don't like it. The thing is, I don't like musicals that much except for The Lion King, Aladdin, and The Book of Mormon. Not only that, it seems to me this film was written during the vampire craze, and to be honest, it just makes the film very dated, even though it came out in 2012. The songs are forgettable except for one, and it's the Mystery Gang song that was performed twice, which annoyed me a bit. One final thing I have to mention is that musicals doesn't seem to match well with Scooby-Doo. Again, not bad, but I don't like it that much. So this one is about the gang going to see Shaggy's cousin in the Wild West, but her town hardly gets any tourists because it was apparently haunted by the ghost of Shaggy's ancestor, Dapper Jack. So the gang had to figure out who was Dapper Jack, what was his backstory, and also help Shaggy's cousin pay off her mortgage. I think this movie is okay, but it's pretty irritating. The irritation comes from the sisters, and Velma's character has changed from a sarcastic and smart character to an annoying cunt complaining about the use of a font.
Using El Kabong is like putting salt in someone's eyes. In everyone's eyes. No professional would use that font. No one with any taste or self-respect.
God, shut up! Just shut the fuck up!
I think the fact that Velma sneezes scaring the cattle away to be very idiotic. The kids' fear of horses didn't let it anywhere, but do I think it's boring? Well, for the first half it was, but the second is where it builds up. But I think this film did alright for exploring Shaggy's family history, and I find it heartwarming seeing Shaggy proving his ancestor is not what he was portrayed to be. Overall, the movie was a meh, just pretty irritating. I remember liking this movie a lot when I was a kid, but there were two moments that left me confused. Two real Scoobies and the two virtual Scoobies. Obviously, it's a continuity error. It still perplexed me after years. There is a side note I have to mention. This is an introduction to Grey DeLisle's voice as Daphne, and the last film, BJ Ward and Scott Inez voicing Velma and Shaggy respectively. But anyway, this film is about the mystery gang going to see their old college friend who does computer science and video game designing, who also programmed a game based on them. But his game was having issues because of the Phantom virus. The gang got teleported into the game, and their only way out is to collect a Scooby snack per level thus completing it. I gotta say, the idea of getting stuck into video games sounds pretty cool on paper, but it was poorly executed. I could give this movie props for when the gang sees their virtual selves. In the beginning of the film is atmospheric and it sets the spooky tone. However, the virtual interaction doesn't make any sense at all, because the virtual characters are not supposed to have a conscience of their own. The Phantosaur is a very shitty villain. He's not even scary at all. He's pretty much a punching bag. He does have the power to manipulate technology, but he doesn't do that all the time. The mystery in this film is not even mysterious at all. It's pretty much blatantly shoved in your face. Simply speaking, the villain reveal is very lazy. Overall, this movie is kind of painful and nostalgic for the most part. This one is about the mystery gang visiting Australia for vacation until they heard about a music contest in the outback in Vampire Rock. The site where it was assumed the contestants were taken hostage by a vampire named Yahoo with the help of 3 vampires resembling the missing members of a band who disappeared a year prior. This is the first film the original cast members from Where Are You worked together for quite a while, which is a nice touch to it. Fright Welker, Casey Kasem, and Nicole Jaff did an incredible job voicing their characters. However, with Heather North, she gave it her all, but it doesn't ring the same bell. The plot is very forgettable for a movie, but as an episode of a TV show, just like What's New Scooby-Doo, would be okay. I can hardly remember anything else that went on in the film. Well, there are 2 things. The Hex Girls and the gang participating in the contest with Velma as the leading vocalist. It's nice to see the Hex Girls again, however, I felt their interaction was very limited. And they hardly did anything with them other than being on the sideline. But hey, at least it's watchable though. So this one is about the gang going to Atlantic City for a vacation, and Fred insisted on going to a circus despite everyone else not feeling up to it. But when they got there, they were getting chased by werewolves, so the gang had decided to participate in the circus while also investigating. I think this film is very weak and generic, but it is to be expected, sadly. Honestly, there's little to say about it. However, the werewolf is a lazy choice. To me, it seems as though the writers couldn't think of an original monster. The circus acts are fine, except for the space cowboy act, and may be very uncomfortable. I think I would rather see the gang going to a casino and the monster wouldn't be as lame as the werewolf. I don't think this movie is terrible, but it's very average. So this one is about the gang celebrating their win after finishing an investigation. Scooby and Shaggy first encountered a toxic waste trolling down into a pumpkin field, which caused the pumpkins to come to life. Scoob and Shag were trying to tell Velma what happened, but she shut them down because she believes in science, you know, standard modern Velma. But then the pumpkin kidnapped some townsfolk, which made them into pumpkins as well, so it's up to the gang to stop the pumpkin apocalypse from going any more further. The last 2 Scooby-Doo movies were outright despicable, but at least this one isn't as insulting, but it doesn't mean it's good overall. Apparently, the plot is orchestrated by Maxwell Adams, the same guy who created one of my favorite shows growing up, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. However, the plot itself was peculiar, but not in a good or bad way. The majority of the time is the gang and the friends in a chase scene, you know, trying to get away from these evil pumpkins. It felt like 30 minutes or so, but some things happen, I guess. Bill Nye is in this movie, which is odd and weird, but they hardly did much on him. He's just there to explain things scientifically. I can honestly say this is the weakest Scooby-Doo Halloween movie. I would rather look at Zombie Island, Witch's Ghost, and the Goblin King for that stuff.
There will be no talk of mysteries or monsters on this trip. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
This one is about Fred, Velma, and Daphne having a vacation in France, whereas Shaggy and Scooby got on the wrong plane and they were taken into the Himalayas. So Fred, Val, and Daph drove to the Himalayas to rescue their friends instead of taking a plane and not waste more money on gas, but whatever. During their rescue, they researched on the abominable snowman, also known as the Yeti. This film is dedicated to Iwao Takamoto, who passed away in early 2007 of a heart attack. He was an animator, TV producer, and director who got into drawing cartoons during World War II. He worked with Disney, Hanna-Barbera, and Warner Brothers. To be honest, this movie is funny in some parts. The animation is neat, the characters are on point. However, it was kind of frustrating and boring. I don't know why a radio station in a storage room is at the top of Mount Everest, but it's there, I guess. Apparently, there's a secret kingdom in the ravine, and it's all green despite being at the top of the world. Plus, there are moments where Shaggy and Scoob are not wearing their winter attire, which kind of bothered me because I kept saying, how are you not cold? How are you not slowly dying from hypothermia? And we see Shaggy and Scooby in the majority of this film. I guess it's just to capitalize on the popularity of Get a Clue, and no, I'm not reviewing that. Last thing to mention is that the physics are obviously flawed. It was an eye roll, to be honest. It was kind of boring, but not to an extent. This movie is about the mystery gang traveling to Hawaii so Daphne could participate in the Big Kahuna of Hanahuna surfing contest, but they were told the town is very haunted and that an evil spirit called the Wiki Tiki was scaring people away. I used to have this film on DVD when I was a kid, and I remember liking it because it's Hawaii. I like the beach, the water, including the surfing. After rewatching this as an adult, this movie was very lackluster. The exploration of Hawaiian culture was very basic and pedestrian. Not only that, it was pretty frustrating because number one, the movie brought up the narrative that Tikis performed ritual sacrifices at the volcano. Yes, there were sacrifices that occurred, but not in the volcano. Number two, they don't have temples inside the volcano. And number three, when the gang discovered the setup at the volcano, it made me a little mad. I almost forgot to mention that the villain's name gets progressively annoying due to the amount of times they used it. The ending didn't make sense because someone won the surfing contest, but they didn't register. Though, I think the film could have been done better. It was overall fine.
Jinkies! It's a clue!
I find this movie to be particularly weird. Mainly it's because I'm so used to seeing the characters in hand-drawn 2D art style, but not puppets. The character designs were based on the TV show from the 80s called A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, in which I watched a glimpse of when I was a kid. So, this film is about Scooby and Shaggy eating a terrible pizza, but then Scoob bit into a treasure map which fascinated Velma. But the Phantom Parrot broke in and took the map, so the gang had to go on an adventure to get the map back. However, this is not the only thing they'll do. They need the map to find treasure. It's pretty cliche. I can't really complain much about this one. It's obviously made for the younger demographic. When it comes to the puppets, Shaggy looks kinda creepy. Daphne and Fred look fine, but Scooby and Velma are one of the cutest puppets I have ever seen. What bothered me is the song choices. Obviously, they've been used before. The first song doesn't fit with the aesthetic during the chase scene in the cave because it sings about summertime. But it's an okay movie though. This one is about the mystery gang going into a convention where Shaggy and Scooby are gonna get an autograph for the original actor for Captain Blue Falcon from Dynamite Dog Wonder. When they got there, they noticed he wasn't recognized and he would aggressively ask anyone for an autograph. Fred wants to look at the latest Captain Blue Falcon and Dog Wonder movie, much to Shaggy and Scooby's dislike towards it. Suddenly, the showing was delayed by Mr. Hyde, who was the antagonist in the original show, so the gang had to figure out who was Mr. Hyde. Personally, I never watched Dynamite Dog Wonder, but they seem cool. I love seeing Hanna-Barbera references that was placed around the convention. I felt as though this was just to pay homage. To list a few, Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw, Yogi Bear, Adam Ant, Captain Caveman, and the Flintstones. The plot was alright, nothing too special, but I do love how the film elaborates on the Dynamite Dog Wonder TV show. There isn't much to say, but it's okay. This film is about the mystery gang visiting Japan for Daphne's karate tournament invited by her friend Miyumi. But the tournament was interrupted by the ghost of the Black Samurai. The gang had to fight the Sword of Doom and Fate to put the evil spirit to rest, I guess. This will be the last film to be animated with the What's New art style, and the last time Casey Kasem voiced Shaggy until his passing in 2014. I also used to have this film when I was a kid, and I remember loving it because it surrounds Japan. At the time, I was getting curious about countries from around the world, and Japan is what interests me the most. And as an adult who rewatched it, the movie seems to have something going for it. I find the backstory of the samurai and the green dragon very interesting. They brought on the narrative of the confliction with advancing while also keeping some forms of tradition. But I wish they would have elaborated more on that. I give this film credit for teaching me the story of Hachiko, a dog who waited at the station for his dead master. He was very known because of what he had shown his trust and loyalty. I appreciate and love Japanese culture. I love the view of Mount Fuji. The cities are very lively at night. Their food looks great and delicate. And of course, their art is majestic. I've been learning to speak and understand Japanese on and off. And like I said, I used to watch a lot of anime. It exposed me to the reality of Japanese society. However, the letdowns consist of the plot looking generic. The villain's motive is illogically contradictory. The humor relies on stereotypes. They're not even funny at all. It was cringy and uncomfortable. This is coming from someone who watches South Park, and that's how you know the joke sucks ass. The chasing music is also stereotypical, except for one, but even the song is forgettable and generic. Some questions flooded in my mind, and it's, why is there a temple in the South Pacific? Why are there indigenous cannibals? How can Scooby hold a sword with his paws? And why did the plot drop Daphne's karate tournament? At the end of it, 完璧とは言えないが十分である. So this one is about the mystery gang going to Chicago to see the Opera House where it's holding a talent event in which Fred and Daphne are participating. But apparently the place is haunted by the Phantom scream for a contestant should win the competition. So the gang had to figure out who started the whole Phantom scheme. I gotta say for this one, it was enjoyable in some way, although the plot is nothing too special nor groundbreaking. It's alright, I could tell they were parodying America's Got Talent, but I don't care about that. Fred and Daphne are a joy to watch. I love seeing the two of them together, and seeing them perform was very cute, especially when they're singing the love song. There were a few takeaways though. During the pizza scene, I thought they were gonna show this pizza, not a flat one, which made my hungry short self annoyed. Another one was when someone gets apprehended, they would say the iconic line, "I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids." This line gets progressively annoying as the movie goes on, but overall, it was kind of fun. Now, I'm pretty sure some of you guys are watching this baffled that they made a second collaboration. Well, I was too. But anyway, this one is about the WWE Superstars Derby racing, but they were getting screwed over by a ghost called Inferno. The gang is already there because in the last film, Shaggy and Scoob wrestled before, so they are there by default. Scooby and Shaggy had to participate in the Derby with The Undertaker as their partner, not only to win, but to figure out who is Inferno. And yes, folks, they got the original wrestlers and business people voicing themselves. The Miz, Paige, Lana, Rusev, who now goes by Miro, The Undertaker, Kofi Kingston, Sheamus, Los Matadores, El Torito, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, Goldust, Stardust, and the late Dusty Rhodes. Let's call out the elephant in the room. We're seeing professional wrestlers, derby racing, and two of those things are very different, but for some oddball reason, it works somehow. The downside I can give is that the villain's motivation is nonsensical, and this movie doesn't feel like a Scooby-Doo movie. But you know what? It's fine, because we get to see the wrestlers' personalities, which is pretty cool. My favorite scene in the movie is seeing The Undertaker taking down Inferno by wrestling, of course. I was fangirling during the scene, but a bit sad since he retired 4 years later. I kinda hate to say it, but this is better than the first one. And I wouldn't mind watching this movie every once in a while. This movie follows the gang going to outer space after winning the lottery. Something went wrong with the ship, which was caused by the xenomorph, so they took refuge into the moon, where it already has a resort. While there, they encountered the xenomorph again, and it's roaming around and stuff and causing mayhem. Meanwhile, we see Fred being googly-eyed for 2 experienced astronauts. Daphne was getting attention from Shannon. Shaggy and Scoob were chilling with a football player, an actor who pretends to be a robot, an egotistical asswipe, an alien addict, and a TV host. One thing I don't like about it is their sloppy humor, hence why there are awkward pauses and it was so cringe. The main characters were kind of vanilla, but the side characters stood out. The conflict between Velma and Daphne felt pretty strange, mainly it's because I never seen them argue like this. The idea of seeing the gang going to outer space is very interesting. The animation is aesthetically cool. Also, the plot was kinda grim because it involved attempted murder. Overall, I think this film looked great, but I personally think it was slightly boring. So, let's move on.
Do something, Freddy!
I am doing something. I'm panicking.
I remembered this movie mainly from the transformation scene, which consists of Velma becoming a werewolf, Fred into a vampire, and Daphne into a witch. I remember they used to scare me as a kid. Another scene I remember was when Shag, Scoob, and Jack were getting chased by the Headless Horseman. Okay, so this one is about a magician who's a fraudster who wants to prove he has magic, imprisons a fairy princess to have her magic in the Goblin Scepter. This is the first film in 9 years the franchise brought back supernatural stuff. I genuinely loved this movie. However, there are a few letdowns. Fred, Daph, and Val were side characters, and I just wish there could have been more with them. The magician is pretty annoying. I think he tries too hard to be powerful, but really, he's a joke. However, Scooby and Shaggy shined in this movie. They fought back despite being afraid. It's really nice seeing them embark on this journey to save their friends. Unlike Chill Out, where it was kind of boring, this one kept my eyes on the screen. Near the end of the movie left me with one question regarding Willow and the Goblin King. How is that possible? Did the Goblin King turn himself into a fairy to conceive Princess Willow? But anyway, this is a nice Halloween movie. I really enjoyed it. This one is pretty interesting because it involves Velma's backstory. So this one is about the mystery gang going to Transylvania, Pennsylvania by train because the mystery van exploded. The entire town hated Velma because she's a descendant of a mad scientist with the last name von Dinkenstein. It was said that the scientist will lay a curse upon anyone for whatever reason. Velma was mind-controlled. Fred suffers from the loss of his van, and I hope you got insurance for it. Daphne puts on an overweight dress, and Shag and Scoob are shown to be courageous and not hungry while wearing lederhosen. The plot is pretty nice, but I think the pacing was a little slow despite the zoom-in effects. The running gag of Fred being reminded that Michael Bay fucked his band got a little annoying. The atmosphere is subtle, and the setting makes it very unsettling. The villain reveal was something I didn't expect. There is one question I have to ask. Who the hell knows about Velma's secret? She's never told anyone about this, not even her friends. But whatever. This movie is worth a watch if you're bored and got nothing to do. Okay, this one is called Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster. This is an introduction to Mindy Kahn's voice as Velma. It's about the mystery gang going to Scotland to visit Daphne's cousin Shannon and to see whether the Loch Ness Monster is real or not. To be honest, I expected to not enjoy this film at all. I thought it was going to be garbage just like Monster of Mexico, but surprisingly, this movie was pretty nice. The plot was pretty solid and thoroughly enjoyable. I can appreciate Gray and Frank for trying to put on a Scottish accent. I initially thought the side characters were Irish, so yeah, both of those accents are pretty confusing, but going back to Gray and Frank's Scottish accent, it's not fully accurate, but I give them props for trying. The animation is overall nice, but the rendering of the monsters was very bizarre and somewhat fell out of place. The exploration of Scottish culture was stereotypical, but thankfully, it was not insulting. So yeah, this movie is nice.
What's that ride?
That's our most wicked ride of all, the Destroyer.
This is also another weird and questionable film. Before I go over it, I'm not a massive Kiss fan myself. Before I watched the film, initially I heard 2 songs from them, but after seeing it, it went up to 6. I'm aware they're well known based on the crazy performances, especially fire breathing and the use of pyrotechnics. So this one is about the gang going to a Kiss theme park called Kiss World for Halloween to see them in concert, but the park was apparently haunted by the Crimson Ghost, who wanted the black diamond called the Rock of Kissteria. I know. Cringe. The gang gets help from the band themselves, who are the guardians of the Black Diamond. Tip note here, this will be the last film Mindy Kong will be voicing Velma before being replaced by Kate M. There are a few questions I have for it. How did Kiss get their powers? What is the source for their powers? Is it the diamond? Even then, their powers are still strong even though the Crimson Ghost had the diamond. Why is Daft simping for Starchild? Why did Daft get mad with Fred for simping for a chemist whereas she was simping for Starchild? Why did Starchild kiss Daphne? I mean, what the hell? Like I said, questionable, but it's strangely fun. I love how creative it looks, especially the scene where they're traveling into a void while performing I Was Made for Loving You. I guess for me, it adds some suspense and I can't help but sing along to it. Strangely fun, but I don't mind it. It's cool.
Prepare to face the hammers of justice.
I'm aware this was not the only time they did a crossover. When it comes to Batman itself, I'm not much of a fanatic, but I tend to casually watch Batman whenever I feel like it. So we have the Mystery Gang joining the Mystery Analysts of Gotham after solving a test mystery. During the meeting, Velma found a case file Batman kept which contained a cold case. Initially, Batman doesn't want to go into it, but during a mystery solving, the case was bothering him, so he and the gang decided to look into the case and solve it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Seeing Batman's flashback would unnerve me as a kid for sure. It's cool to see the gang working with him again. The moments where Scooby helps Batman is very adorable. I mean, come on, he's a good boy. I like seeing some of the villains Batman has fought with. Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, the Penguin, the Riddler, Catwoman, and of course, the Joker. I may not watch Batman that much, but to be honest, the villain reveal is riveting. I mean, overall, I think the movie is pretty good. There isn't much to say here. For this film to be the latest, it surprised me a whole lot. I never thought this crossover would ever happen, but it did. Personally, I liked Courage the Cowardly Dog when I was a kid. Growing up, I was exposed to some weird shows, especially The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. Some moments that won't leave my head is when Muriel gets possessed by the mattress, the King Ramses curse, the girl playing the violin before turning her head, Fred, and of course, Courage's nightmare about not being perfect. Anyway, this one is about Scooby and Courage getting hypnotized by some weird noise coming from the middle of nowhere. So the gang had to help them to resolve this issue with the help of Mario, for the most part, and Eustace, I guess. This is honestly one of the best crossovers I have ever seen. The interaction between Scoob and Courage is very adorable. I think they make a very good team. There are funny moments, and one is Courage's reaction when being afraid. The interaction between the computer and Velma's tablet was priceless, mainly because of Courage and Scoob's reaction. Eustace's song is a guilty pleasure of mine, even though I don't like modern day Velma. At least in this one, she wasn't as irritating. One thing to mention is that this one seems to mostly focus on Courage, and to be honest, I could get behind with that, considering the fact that both of the shows have 3 themes in common: humor, mystery, and creepiness. It is very nice to see Courage doing whatever it takes to protect Muriel, Eustace, and his home, even though he's instilled with fear. But now, Muriel is very safe out there, and we're gonna miss her very, very much. So this one is about the mystery gang going to a spa to help Shaggy ease his fears because he was traumatized while solving a mystery. So the gang was told by the doctor to not do any mysteries at all, and at the spa, the doctor there explained the backstory of the Phantosaur while also treating Shaggy's trauma by doing techno-hypnosis, I guess. And throughout the film, we see Shaggy being very courageous, but he tends to snap back to his old scared self. And yes, ladies and gentle loves, this film is the birth of Ultra Instinct, especially in this scene.
Say hi to your friends, punk.
I was fangirling so hard watching this scene that I had to take a breather for a moment. It shows that Shaggy has the potential to not let fear take a toll on him, and that's what's holding him back. The love chemistry between Velma and Windsor was pretty cute. I can't help but smile widely whenever I see the two of them together. But then it all crumbled down. The movie was fun to watch, and I recommend this film to anyone who only wants to see it for the memes, I guess, even though it's kind of old already. But moving on. So this one is about the gang traveling in the desert until their van broke down, so they had to stay in a small town close by to get it repaired. While there, they were told about the aliens taking over the world. During this investigation, Shaggy and Scooby finds love for the very first time. This one is considered to be one of the classics, but I think the next movie has an interesting setting. Plus, I think it's difficult to make the desert a scary setting. Personally, I'm not a big sci-fi fan. Now, to point out the title, it's misleading because anyone who has seen it will understand. I think the plot is solid, but it isn't as grand as Witches Goes to Zombie Island. Seeing Shaggy and Scoob falling in love for Crystal and Amber respectively is very cute and wholesome. The groovy song is very memorable, specifically the chorus.
How groovy, just us two, so groovy. Don't forget Scooby-Doo.
The song definitely gives it the 60s aesthetic. Jennifer Love Hewitt's cover of Where Are You sounds very nice. I enjoyed this film overall. Another tip note here I have to mention is that this will be the last Scooby-Doo film. Daphne will be voiced by Mary Kay Bergman, who sadly passed away in 1999. I was pleasantly surprised with this one, and I can't believe I've never heard of it when it came out. Mind you, around 2010, I was about 8 or 9. So this one is about Fred taking his friends to his childhood summer camp, Little Moose, when he's gonna be a camp counselor. But when they arrived, the camp was already looking apocalyptic. But Fred insisted they should stay and have fun while also competing against another superior camp, Big Moose. As you can see, there are cliches in media when it comes to camping. Crappy campfire stories and being overly competitive against another campsite. But going back to the campfire stories, I thought the writers are gonna pull off a Jason Voorhees backstory. Well, sorta. This movie did great for being self-aware, and it's overall funny. I caught myself laughing when watching it. However, there is one scene that left me a little puzzled. But when it comes to Fred, this really suits him, especially when he always gets a hard-on with traps. Overall, it's a fun movie. I like it. So this one is called Abracadabra Doo. Another tip note here I have to mention is that this film is an introduction to Matthew Lillard's voice as Shaggy, who as of now still voices the character to this day. Not only that, he played the role of Shaggy in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. And I haven't seen this movie since 16 years, and I would probably never touch them. We have the mystery gang going to a castle which is an academy of magic to see Velma's sister Madeline. Well, there they were told about the Griffin, a monster that is half lion and half eagle, and there's also a banshee. I gotta say, this film is pretty good. The castle is a good setting to solve mysteries. Characters are very likable. There is no villain in this film, which may shock some of you, but it surprisingly worked here. The chemistry between Shaggy and Madeline is pretty cute. And I know some of you are gonna say, I ship Shaggy and Crystal! You can't change my mind! It reigns supreme! Relax. What I like about this film is that Shaggy is coming out of his comfort zone to help someone he genuinely cares about. I was rooting for him in this movie. His character development is very satisfying. Overall, it's a great movie because it defines the word mystery. I'm very excited to talk about this movie because this film is an introduction to the Hex Girls. We see the mystery gang going to Oak Haven, Massachusetts to check out the Autumn Fest invited by Velma's favorite horror novelist, Ben Ravencroft. While exploring the place, Ben told the gang he was a descendant of a Wiccan named Sarah who was accused of being a witch during the Salem trials. So the gang and Ben embarks on this journey to find Sarah's health book to prove her innocence. Personally, I grew to love Autumn because of this movie. I mean, look at the scenery. The Hex Girls are awesome. Their song is awesome. The plot twist is incredibly engaging. This is the second film in the franchise that is also real. I mean, there is real magic. Oh, and Warner Brothers, I'm keeping an eye on you. Don't you dare touch it into making a sequel because everyone is going to have a field day with that. Honestly, there isn't much to say about this film. It's overall amazing and engaging. Guys, we saw it coming. Anyone who has seen this film would say this is an instant classic. So this movie is about the mystery gang traveling to Louisiana to find a very haunted area for Daphne's show. Luckily, the character Lena overheard the conversation and invited them to Moonscar Island, where she lives with Simone. Both Lena and Simone explained their house is definitely haunted by the captain himself, which completely fascinated Daphne. Fred initially jumped into the assumption tool, meaning he initially thought the whole story was fabricated. The main difference between then and the sequel was that one of them are not heavily obnoxious and anger-inducing. Considering with all the crazy stuff that happened on the island, well, the reason this movie was constantly praised was because the setting and the atmosphere is skin-crawling. The plot is great and interesting, especially Simone and Lena's backstory. It's Terror Time Again is an instant bop. The writing in this one is very top-notch. The moment when the gang realized the zombies are in fact real is what blew people away because we're used to seeing them unmasking a monster. But this one nails it for breaking the stereotype that was instilled in the franchise for nearly 3 decades. I'm sure it's not a surprise for y'all, but what can I say? This is what we wanted and this is what we got. And that is why Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is #1 on my list. And that, ladies and gentleloves, concludes my ranking from worst to best animated direct-to-video Scooby-Doo films. I can't believe I've been watching nothing but those movies for 2 months straight. I personally did not recommend binge-watching the movies because you'll get to experience burnout. Trust me, I've learned that firsthand during this entire process. However, if you're planning to watch those movies for some reason, take breaks. The next ranking is going to be on worst to best Tom and Jerry movies, so look forward to that. Share, like, comment, and subscribe to get notified for more content, and I'll get in touch with y'all in the next video. Bye bye!